Bluegrass backup rolls are used far and wide with banjo players, and there are many styles of backup and rolls applied to bluegrass. Jazz players call backup comping, which means complementing the person who's soloing or playing the melody, which means not to step on their feet while they're playing, not to stick out in volume while they're playing. And I follow this. I try to support the soloist or the person playing melody rather than play fancy stuff behind them. So my bluegrass backup is, it's maybe less fancy than many. Sonny Osborne's revered for his bluegrass banjo backup and some of the most beautiful and ornamented rolling that kind of set the precedent for bluegrass backup a long time ago. And of course, Earl Scruggs. These are people to listen to not only when they're playing a solo, but also behind someone else's solo. They're doing wonderful things. There's a great roll to start bluegrass banjo backup with. There are two parts to banjo backup, and one of them is playing percussion, which is essentially the mandolin's role of going boom chick. And what I do when I do this is I play the bass string, which is your fourth string D, and I use these two fingers, the index and the middle, on the top two notes of the chord. And I quickly lift my hand up on the strings to get that short staccato sound. Again, it's just great to practice on all your G chords if you're in the key of G. Sometimes players like to break this up with a roll, and this is the roll that I like to use. Thumb, index, thumb, middle, which is the alternating thumb roll, some call it, but I use it to go 1, 2, 3, 4 down the strings like this. You can play an arpeggio on a chord very well like this, but you can also make it if you lift your fingers up on the strings. Now you can also go back and forth between the percussive thing and this roll. A lot of players try to break up their playing doing that when they're playing backup or they're complementing the soloist. 3, 4, 1, 2. Here's an example over a bluegrass vamp in G. These same backup concepts can be used on other chords, and I recommend practicing them the same way, finding all those chords on the fretboard and going between them all when you practice them. Kind of kills two birds with one stone. Here we'll do it in A. Over a D chord. And over a C chord. Here's an example of these techniques used in a bluegrass song with the chords G, C, and D. 1, 2, 3. When playing down the neck in other keys, like D major or C major, other techniques can be applied. I tend to listen to Earl Scruggs's backup on tunes like Soldier's Joy for this kind of old time backup that they use, but I kind of improvise with these rolls. I'll do the same chord progression 1, 4, 5 in the key of C. So those chords will be C, C major, F major, and G major. And I use the same percussive techniques in the same roll I demonstrated, but I'll also incorporate a little bit more since I can use the open strings. It's basically trial and error. The key to this is experimentation, and the more you try, the better you'll get a feel for it. Listen to your favorite records and listen to what your favorite players are doing when someone else is taking the lead.